Hello, listeners, and welcome back to The Real Deal with Dee and Denice. I'm Dee Hubay.
I'm Miss Denice Newton.
And we're your hosts. On today's episode, we're getting real with a special guest from the entertainment industry, Philadelphia native Robert X. Golphin. So buckle up for a really impressive resume, because not only is he an acclaimed actor, filmmaker, screenwriter, and director, but he's also an author, mentor, SAG-AFTRA member, and so much more. Robert, the CEO and founder of Robert X. Golphin Entertainment, has made significant contributions to the arts across multiple platforms of the industry, including with his latest acting role in The Good of Man. Aside from his role alongside Denzel Washington in the Golden Globe-nominated film The Great Debaters, his talents have been recognized with numerous awards worldwide for his performances in films such as Essential and How to Tie a Tie. Golphin has also been featured in shows like HBO's The Wire and John Adams, showcasing his dynamic range and depth as an actor. His work, characterized by a dedication to exploring complex themes such as race, religion, and social issues, continues to inspire and challenge audiences and peers alike. Holding a master's degree in screenwriting and a bachelor's degree in theater and film, Robert's directorial resume includes the feature-length comedy Freshman Friday, which is on Amazon Prime, starring the NAACP Theater Award winner Jarrell O'Neal and singer-songwriter Brian McKnight Jr., who's son of the Grammy-nominated R&B icon Brian McKnight. Robert also hosts the multi-award-winning chat series RXG Exclusives, which features both national and international creatives, community members, and celebrities, covering topics from pop culture to politics and everything in between, including mental health, entertainment, and more. In 2021, he expanded his creative repertoire by authoring the novella Cold Night in a Warm Season, which is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other retailers nationwide and abroad. His work is spanning acting, directing, writing, and producing everything from documentaries to short films to music videos and commercials to screenplays and stage plays. He has earned nearly 50 awards and nominations, affirming his impact on the industry and culture. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Robert is committed to mentoring the next generation, demonstrating his dedication to the creative community. Robert's support for emerging artists includes mentoring, filmmaking workshops, and acting camps, just to name a few. With the launch of Robert X. Golphin Entertainment, which is a performing arts production company, he continues to support emerging artists and championing innovative content for screen and stage, while also providing a platform to support future trailblazers in the arts, further highlighting his role as a significant influencer and mentor to the creative community. Robert, thank you so much for being here.
Wow, that's a mouthful. And to hear you read it back, it makes you think about all that you've done. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I know that I've laid out one impressive resume so far, but is there anything else that you would like to tell us about yourself?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I just have always been enamored with the arts in some way. From the time that I was really young, when my mom put me into modeling troupes and things like that. But then there was a lull of time that the arts kind of left my life, and then it came back years later. So,
Well, then to start us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into the industry and with independent artistry?
Sure. I always tell this story that at one point in my life, I decided that I really wanted to be a doctor. And very young, probably like 6 or 7 years old, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. But I realized that I could not stand the sight of actual blood. Prop blood, movie blood, stage blood, I'm okay with that. But the real blood was a problem. So I would say a few years after that, I realized, okay, I think I want to do law. So it was humanitarian law at first, and then it turned into wanting to do entertainment law. And I still have legal ambitions in the back of my mind, but I think I'd rather play a lawyer on TV or in the movies rather than actually go through all the schooling for that. And at the age of 12, that's when I really discovered my calling to make films. I went to this film and television camp for kids called Cinekid in Willow Grove, and a lot of people in the industry have come through that camp and that school. It's now defunct, but Robert J. Clark Jr., who ran that place, really helped me find my calling, and my life has never been the same.
Of your so many projects, which of these have been the most meaningful to you and why?
Oh, well, listen, I would say that obviously my experience working on The Great Debaters with Denzel Washington was the one of the biggest highlights of my life. It certainly was the biggest mainstream highlight of my life. Most of my work as an artist has been in the independent film realm, but I will never forget being a part of such a classic. And I didn't know exactly what this film was going to be when we were making it. But now, all these years later, to see that people are watching it in high school classes and college courses, and it's the go-to every Black History Month, and there are still generations of people that are just discovering this film, and people still to this day say, "Man, you were a part of that, and I've got to see it," or "That was amazing," and I'm really it makes me feel special to have that as part of my legacy. But I would say some of the most meaningful projects have been my own, because I've been able to tap into taboo topics and create characters that people don't necessarily want to see or don't want to explore, because I'm all about putting up a lens to society. And I'm not saying that everything has to be message oriented. Sure, you want to sometimes just watch popcorn entertainment, kick back and take a break from this crazy world that we live in. But I think that it's our responsibility as artists to speak the truth. And so not everybody has to do it, and no knocks on anyone that doesn't, but that's just my personal belief, and that's what I try to do with my work.
I think that the meaningfulness and the importance that you just described is something that really resonates with me too. And I heard you mention that you like to do the taboo characters. And in some of the interviews that I've listened to you do, you talked a bit about works that delve into the human condition. Can you tell us more about why it's so important to you?
Well, when I first started making films my grandfather had a camera when I was about, I guess, 11 or 12. And that was really before I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. But I always took that camera and was documenting the family. And lately I've been coming across old tapes and everything that I took of the family way back in the day. And ultimately that led into me at 14 years old doing my first real short films. And it focused on, kids deciding if they're going to engage in sexual intercourse or not, and how to be safe about that. Because I saw how it was affecting friends of mine and schoolmates of mine. And at that time, I was just thinking, man, kids having to worry about all these kind of things, it just doesn't seem normal. But it is, because it's part of the human condition. And so I always made projects that centered on younger people and people coming of age and that sort of thing. And I just felt that, if somebody took the time to create art that was geared towards me as a younger person and didn't feel like it was preaching at you, but it was just a story and was just characters that you could relate to, then you would take that knowledge subliminally and be able to apply it to your life. And so that's why I've always felt it was important. I mean, back in the day, they had, I think it was called the after school specials that you would see. And that was great, but it could be heavy handed sometimes. And so I think that if there's a way that you can creatively influence people and inspire young people, I think that's the way to do it. And so I've always tried to do that with my work. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, it does. And I want to make sure that I give Denice space to talk too. But as a sociologist, what you said really resonates with me, because I'm keenly aware about how things that we don't necessarily think about, like the shows that we watch as children, the books that we read, the music we listen to, it really does have an impact on the way that we think and feel about ourselves and the world at large. And it sounds to me like your work goes so far beyond entertainment. And I know, like you said, there's a place for that popcorn kind of entertainment, but it sounds like yours is a lot about challenging norms and sparking conversations and giving people serious food for thought that they might not even realize that they gained from that. And I think that that's really important and special.
Yeah, and I have to say that sometimes that means having a very specific demographic because, you
Mm,
know, people can go out with their camera right now and shoot, I don't know, a squirrel eating an acorn, and it will garner lots of views and subscribers online. But as artists, you can't worry about how many people are supporting your work because at the end of the day, if your work touches just one person, then you've done your job.
right. And that brings up something else for me. But Denise, did you have anything to say?
No, I mean, I'm just, I'm smiling because I'm just so proud of Robert because, I've known Robert since 2010. I invited
We
him
go
to
way
come.
back.
We go way back. I had put together a conference at my church for young people. He has a heart for young people. I'm listening to him. Everything he's saying right now went right to that conference that I did, and for him to impart his knowledge into them. And he came. I invited him to come and speak, and he didn't hesitate. I mean, I was just so floored by that. When I invited him, it was just like a quick yes, like I will be there, And he came and he spoke to our young people on a Saturday morning, and that knowledge that he imparted into them was just so amazing, incredible. And from time to time, they still ask about him.
Oh,
Where is he? What's is he still acting? Is he on TV? He's doing any more movies? My son still talks about Robert, in fact, and I told him that you had asked about him the last time we talked. And he was like, wow, where is he now? What's he doing? And what you see in front of us, I mean, he does such tremendous work, but he's a humanitarian too. That part he's not even talking about, but he is such a humanitarian and he's a philanthropist. He is just so much wrapped up in one package. I adore Robert X. Golphin because, outside of, just like I said, the work that he does as an artist, he is just such a humanitarian. And what he does is just not for himself. It's not for self glory. It's not for him to make a name for himself. It's for what he does to go out and to impact other people. And he does it from the heart. And I know he does it from the heart. I've watched him over the years. So this is why whenever I'm just sitting here like a proud mom, just listen to him talking to you because my mind is just going back to what I saw from him the first time I dealt with Robert, and over the years watching him just expand, his field and just expand what he's doing. And when I go back and watch the great debaters, I just, and I watch Dunbar Reed,
Yeah.
I mean, I just sit there and I just smile and I'm like, "Ah, I know him. And when I'm sitting around, sitting with people that see that part of the film, I'd be like, I know him personally. I'm just kind of just boasting and bragging about that. But Robert, I am just so proud of everything that you're doing, and I know that this is just the beginning. There's just so much more that I know that you are going to do. But but my question is this: with so much that's going on in Hollywood right now, do you expect things to get better? I mean, even Marvel and DC Comics are having trouble. How do you see things out in that respect with Hollywood in general? The actors, and before you answer that, I'm just saying, like on social media, where the actors are coming out now, they're telling on each other, and everybody is tearing each other down now, and it's just like, for me, that's a downer. You know what I mean? But financially, I guess is what I'm really talking about. Outside of all of that foolery, how do you see all that turning out?
that's I harken back to something you said on my show. I think your quote was, "That's a loaded question," but that
Yes.
is a loaded question, and I don't even know that I have the answer to it in totality. But I will say that it has been quite disheartening to see a lot of the things that have been transpiring over the past several years in this industry, and there's so much to unpack with all of that. I mean, I think that people should never feel like their voices should be silenced. However, I think sometimes we tear each other down for personal gain. And again, that's, specific to certain individuals in certain situations. This isn't a comment on all, but, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a certain level of just it being about the art and the artists that we've lost. And some of that has to do with this social media culture that we live in. It does.
Absolutely.
It has influenced it greatly, and largely not in a great way. I've said many times before that I think we are living in times that are the most insensitive and oversensitive times that I've ever seen without balance. And so I think if Hollywood is to ever be what it once was, there's just so much work to be done. But I don't know that it can be that. I think that we're just in a different age now, whatever that means. And, everybody has access to technology, and people are stepping outside of the Hollywood system to make their own films and their own content. And that's all well and good. Although even that, that's probably about 5 other conversations we could have.
Sure.
I hold on to faith that Hollywood finds a way, or that we as the people find a way, because really it's all of us that have the power to get Hollywood to kind of turn things around. As for actors and filmmakers, directors and all these people revealing things that have happened on sets years and years ago and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think in a lot of ways it affects the work, because when you then look back on some of these projects, they're now tainted by those experiences. But at the same time, how can you tell someone who had a bad experience, who at the time maybe felt like they couldn't say anything because if they did, they wouldn't be able to excel, that they can't speak? It's a catch-22 situation. I don't know.
Are you worried about AI?
Oh, extremely worried. I mean, I was just looking at some pictures on my phone yesterday that were AI generated, and I think it was for a good cause, though. They were images of Breonna Taylor and Trayvon Martin and some others that we have lost, but they were generated to look like what they would look like today in different settings. And I had to do a quadruple take because it was so lifelike, so realistic. And so I think that, as an actor, to know that projects are being made and will be made that feature computer images and computer performances, when I've trained for this as an actor, I am doing the auditioning and the callbacking and the studying, and people are, studying this technique and that technique, and now they have to compete with a computer. It doesn't make any sense. And so I think, Dee, I hope I'm not jumping on the trajectory of the conversation, but I think that's part of what we were fighting for with the SAG-AFTRA strike, to protect us as much as we can. I don't know exactly what that looks like as the years progress, because obviously we didn't get everything that we wanted. And I think that in 3 years' time, we may potentially be back on the picket lines.
Wow. So you did not jump through the trajectory of the conversation, but I do want to return just to a couple of things you said before and then dig into this one a bit further. So sticking with, I heard you say balance, finding that balance is tough. And in with that theme of balance, you said, you want everyone to feel like their voices should be heard and nobody should be silenced. And I think when we think about issues like the Me Too movement and let's say Harvey Weinstein and stuff, I think that it was important for them to be able to come out. And you already mentioned how, at the time they may not have felt like they were able to, they wouldn't have had support, their careers may have been over. And if that was their dream, how could they have felt like they were going to be able to say that at the time? But that doesn't mean that they'd have to hold that in forever. But at the same time, it's that balance between something like the Me Too movement and doing it for personal gain, which is something else that I heard you mention. And then going back to the SAG-AFTRA strike stuff and bringing in the AI, I was reading about how, there's writers who have had their books and their works fed to AI or ChatGPT or something like that. And it was able to essentially regurgitate a new quote unquote piece of work, but it sounded exactly like that author, their own style, their own tone. Everybody's unique. You would think, okay, well, this is a new piece of work. How can it be theirs? But once you start to understand those really deep intricacies about what makes an author that author, what makes them that director, those key trademark things that are very particular to those people. And then when you can't tell the difference between something that they've done and something that AI has generated, I think that becomes a really huge problem. And so I heard you say that you think you're going to be back on the picket line potentially in a few years and that you didn't get everything that you wanted. But just to give our listeners a bit of background and context, what was it that brought you all to the picket lines to begin with?
Well, I wasn't a part of any of the committees or staffers that led the fights, but I definitely was there in solidarity, and I was on the picket lines on the West Coast, um, you know, marching with or walking with fellow actors and writers too, because writers joined us as well. And we were, to put it in layman's terms, we were fighting for protections against AI, also for better treatment and fair compensation to people of color, and just a variety of issues that just make sense. It's nothing that was so far-fetched that the studios should have walked away from the table like they did. There was nothing so far-fetched that this isn't something that could have been dealt with before we needed to strike. I think that it was really unfortunate what happened with, the strike for the writers, the strike for the actors. I know that the Directors Guild were able to figure their situation out before having to walk. But yeah, I mean, it's complicated and not complicated. That's the best way I can put it.
And I heard you say that you don't know what it will take to get Hollywood back to what it once was. What did you mean by that? What is the once was that you're kind of looking for?
Well, I think it's really us as the people saying to Hollywood, listen, if you're going to create material, if you're going to greenlight material, this is what you need to greenlight. And, just speaking on it as a person of color and how it's few and far between that you see projects like Color Purple and American Fiction and Origin come into the fray. And, I haven't seen Origin yet. Ava DuVernay, shout out. I can't wait to see that. But you see how that had to be made outside of the system completely. And then it wasn't really even in the awards conversation. But that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that, if people, I'll put it this way. The movies is different now because people are watching so much streaming. People are watching films on their, and TV shows on their cell phones and on their computers. So there's not a whole lot of people going to the actual movie theaters.
Yes.
I still feel like that's an experience to be had, though. There's nothing like being in a darkened theater with a whole bunch of other silhouettes eating popcorn, right? And I think that we have always had the power because we are the ones that made the box office either succeed or fail. And so if we start saying to the industry by our actions, no, this is not what we want. No, you need to, greenlight more of these projects. No, you need to put more marketing into this film so people know about it. You need to put this film in more theaters, not just a few hundred. You know what I mean? That's part of what I'm saying we need to do as far as the industry goes. But then also, when you have actors like Monique and Taraji P. Henson talking about not getting fair pay and not having certain amenities and not having trailers or dressing rooms or whatever the arguments may be, that's unacceptable. And no one should stand for that. And so I think that we have to keep raising our voices to the studios to make that as plain as day. I don't know the full story of everything that happened with Taraji, for instance, but for her to have had to even come out and say those things, for them to even had to go through any of that, is mind-boggling to me. Not completely surprising, but mind-boggling at the same time.
Returning to something you said earlier too about the color purple and how it had to go, completely out of the normal avenues that maybe a show would take, or a movie would take rather. And it really wasn't a part of the awards conversation. It reminded me a bit about the Barbie movie. And there was a lot of women that were really a part of that. And Ryan Gosling, very deserving, I think, of the award that he got. He did a phenomenal part in there. But it was, a movie mostly made by women, a lot of a women director, just so many women that were not recognized. And, I just thought that was an interesting tidbit to add in about the awards show conversation.
And
And
if I can say one thing too about the streaming piece, is it fair to blame a lot of that on COVID, as far as now people, really, because I know, like myself, I completely cut the cable cord, okay, because it was,
Sure.
everything was so much about streaming during COVID, because you couldn't go to the movies, right? But I do miss that, and our whole family are Marvel freaks, right? We're just Marvel fans, big Marvel fans. And so we couldn't go, right? It was all kind of craziness going on during that time. But is it fair? Was it leading up to that prior to COVID, or do you think COVID was a thing that really created this situation?
Yeah, no, I think this was a general progression of just a change in technology and a change in what people had access to or wanted access to. But I think that COVID really affected it, and maybe I can't think of the right word, but it accelerated it, I think is what happened. But we were on that path already, and I don't see that changing at this point. Do I think that going to the movies physically is going to be obsolete in the next few years? Not necessarily, but I don't think it will be the kind of business that it once was.
Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, but when you think of films like Tenet and Oppenheimer, and these big booming soundtracks and effects and all of that, there's no comparison between watching that on the big screen and watching it in your living room. You're going to miss something in that process.
Yes.
And if I can add to that, first to piggyback off you, Denice, and then to jump over to your comments, Robert. Will be 27 in April, and I've never had cable ever. So I've always had streaming service. I did have cable growing up, like my parents had cable in the home. But once I turned 18, I left for the military, and I did have my own place. I could have had cable, but I just didn't see the need for having cable. And I definitely didn't go to the movie theater as often. But something, just since we've started this podcast, Denice, that I've come to learn about is sound design and audio engineering. And I think a lot of times when people think about the professions that are involved in what we're talking about, they think actor, director, maybe screenwriter, those kinds of things. But there's so many people that are a part of this. For example, audio engineers, and sound design is way bigger than I thought that it could possibly be. And as I started to learn more, I realized when you see things in the theaters, there's infrared sound that can be used, and it can actually evoke emotion in your body. And you're not going to be getting that same kind of feeling that you will get in a movie theater.
Yeah.
And it's not just the entertainment industry. Even if you look, like malls are dying all across the country. When you look at Amazon, online shopping. So
it's making us people are not so friendly anymore.
That is true. And as it pertains to entertainment, I think it's kind of a mixed bag, because now, because of streaming, you have so many options. But there are so many times where I will sit and turn on Max and Netflix and Prime and all these other things, and then turn them off because there's just too many choices, But I guess that's a personal problem. I don't know.
No, you're right. It's the same here. The only, to me, the plus in that is that you can just pull up something at any given time, and watch it as many times as you want. It's always there, So I mean, it's that, but it just lets you know that we are in a different era, and things are just different now.
But
And
it
that, I
does
mean, there
make
was
it a little more challenging for artists and creatives who
Mm.
have trained, who have gone to school, who have dedicated their lives
Mm.
to actually caring about the craft to break through, because now anybody with a phone or a camera or this or that can make their
to
project and put it out there. And listen, as far as I can only speak for this country, but the American dream is that you should be able to do what you want to do, right? But it certainly has
Yeah.
made it very challenging to differentiate between a project that actually has you know a lot of time and energy and forethought put into it versus that of somebody who wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I think I'm going to make a movie today. And they know nothing about how to actually
Mm.
execute it. That said, because their content that they aren't getting from the mainstream, the minute they see something, they're going to latch on to it, even if it's not, the best quality that it can be.
I mean, I have written a couple of, screenplays myself, and I just stopped because I'm like, this, it's hard to break into that. But like you said, for people who've gone to school for it and put their blood, sweat, and tears in it, and now anybody who just got a little bit of equipment and know somebody who knows somebody can get the stuff out there and put a little money behind it, can get the stuff on there. And I cringe when I look at some of that stuff that's actually on there, but there are some people who like that. So I'm like, okay, wow,
I
that
think
is.
people are seeing themselves reflected in some of the work that's out there by
That is true.
independent creatives. Mainstream Hollywood is just not doing a lot of. And so,
I have to agree with that.
And I'm glad that we are on this topic because I have a question. I guess it's more of a statement, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. So when I think about all the opportunities that are open now, I think about, people who may not have had the resources. Maybe their family couldn't have afforded to send them to acting school or college,
sure.
even though they could have been there cognitively speaking, they didn't have the resources to attend. So I think about, okay, now there are people who may have that talent, but didn't have the resources available to them to be able to participate in a meaningful way before. And so now that we have all of these options, maybe this is their avenue to get found or to find their breakthrough in a way that they otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. But the other things that you've just mentioned, Robert, is not something that I've considered. And it's also not an area that I know a lot about. So what do you say to that? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I am someone who has always loved working with new talent. I mean, I absolutely, absolutely love, and not even just new talent, but people that didn't even realize that they had a certain talent, And so I love helping people of all ages discover, oh, yeah, I think I can act, or I think I can write, or direct, or produce, or be a cinematographer, or a whatever. And and I think that's part of the reason why I teach the arts, and I teach filmmaking camps and weekend film workshops and all sorts of things. But the person has to really want to learn it and embrace it, not just say, oh, I want to be a director and be famous, or I want to be an actor and be famous. It can't just be about the fame or the money. Well, it can be, but if that's the road that you're going to go on, just know that it's a different sort of road than I'm interested in. But I just think that, desiring fame and desiring just being the boss all the time is not very realistic. And I always say that, we all have to really work with each other to create more products. There are so many people that I would love to work with that are established, mainstream, independent, emerging, aspiring.
Yeah.
But then what happens is that, there's lots of folks that have fallen into this crabs in a barrel mentality, and they only want to be the boss because they want the shine, they want the spotlight. But imagine if instead of the three of us, this is just an example, of course, but instead of the three of us fighting over who gets to be the director of the project. What if I directed S. Denice's project and Dee directed my project and so forth and so on? We then would have 3 projects to put into the atmosphere, 3 pieces of art. It's a very simplified way of looking at it, but I really think that if we as creatives and artists and people that were interested in the arts approached it that way, instead of always being in competition, it would be a much better situation.
And I think this is a perfect place to segue into Robert X. Golphin Entertainment and what your kind of goals are there and what advice you might have for young people. But before we jump into that, in another interview, I also heard you say that this industry is not for the faint of heart, but that rejection is not the end of the road, but rather a stepping stone. So before we jump into the mentorship stuff and the advice for young people, can you tell us about that?
Listen, as specifically as an actor, but also in all areas of art, really, rejection is like 95 to 98% of this business. You are always getting no's. It doesn't matter who you've worked with, what you've done. Somebody's always going to say, no, not good enough, not right now, not this time. And, you know, you're going to have those moments where you're about ready to bang your head against the wall. And if you're a God-fearing person like me, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, but if you're a spiritual person, you're going to have those tough conversations with God. I mean, you know, or whatever entity it is you believe in. I've had some serious conversations where if somebody were to drive by, they would think, oh, what's going on with that guy? But, you know, it comes with the territory. And, you know, I think that if you feel like in your heart you can't deal with all of that, then I would say this might not be the line of work for you to pursue. But it's ebbs and flows. And, you know, a lot of it is just scratching and clawing and trying to climb through windows when the doors won't open and crawl through the vents. You get dusty and dirty and you just have to keep going. You know, this is an everyday battle. Listen, I'm very confident in my ability as an artist. I know I'm talented. I know what my worth is. That's not ego. It's just what it is. And I know that this industry, the mainstream industry and the independent industry, is severely missing out on what they could have with me, whether it's behind or in front of the camera. But I do not wait for the opportunity to knock on my door. I create my own projects, and I create projects for other people to be a part of so that they can, you know, be a part of this. And so I say to young people, people of all ages, you know, yes, you have all this technology available to you, but I would say don't just pick up the technology that you have and shoot something. Listen to conversations like this one. Watch different artists, whether it's on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever the platform is, and see what they're doing, see what they're talking about. You know, listen to interviews of some of the greats, you know, the masters of their crafts, like the Denzel Washingtons and the Forrest Whitakers and the Tom Hanks and the Viola Davises. Listen to what they've had to go through and then implement that in your own work, because there's always ways that you can apply bits and pieces of what everyone has gone through to your own life and your own career. And so with Robert X. Golphin Entertainment, we're trying to, you know, our goal is to create films, television projects, stage projects, commercials, PSAs. I mean, the whole gamut. I hope that as time progresses, I am working with lots of different collaborators. You know, it's not just going to be the Robert X. Golphin show every single time. You know, it's about really uplifting fellow artists that are out there.
And as I heard you talking, I also saw Denice writing, so I know she's got some awesome comments to share. But if I can just make one comment quickly, if you're somebody that's like me who, you know, is not an actor or not a writer like Denice is, or, you know, like an actor like you are, or so many things like you are, Robert, I was struck by, you said something that in all places, you were at a Dollar General and somebody was able to recognize that you were a part of the entertainment industry, and they just kind of gave you some words of encouragement, and they were kind to you, and it gave you a spark that you needed to keep going. So if you're someone that is like me, who may not be a performer or a part of the performing arts world, but is super supportive of it, that's something that we can all do. Just be encouraging and be kind to one another.
Absolutely. And listen, even if somebody isn't an artist or they don't identify as an artist, but they love the arts, everybody has a story to tell. Whether they know it or not, everybody has a story to tell. And so one need not be a screenwriter to be able to craft a story that can be told. You can always link up with somebody who does what you don't do, and they can then take your story, your voice, your experiences, and put it into some kind of tangible form that people can partake of. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And in terms of just being, it's really just about being decent human beings. When I was in that dollar store, it was one of many odd experiences I've had where people have stopped me because they could see something in my eyes or sense something with my spirit. And, it takes nothing for someone to just recognize, for someone to just see someone else. And that's what I always try to do as a person. This has nothing to do with the arts. It's just, if I see somebody that is doing something that should be acknowledged in some way, it could be small, it can be big, whatever, I stop, even if they're a complete stranger, and say, hey, I see you, thank you for what you're doing. Congratulations on this or that. It really can change someone's outlook. You never know what kind of day somebody is having and how you might be able to save a life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For sure, in this atmosphere. The question that I often have a lot is, why is it that it seems, at least to me, and this could be a me thing, that there are so many remakes of classics, whether that's movies or TV, instead of original content? It seems like they rather reach back and remake something rather than put out more original content.
It's all about
Why is that? Is that an intentional thing?
It's money.
Do you think?
That's all it's about. It's money. It's the brass, if you will, is whether that's the studio system or whatever the entity is, thinking that, okay, we know that this particular superhero movie is something that everybody knows and everybody will go see it, even if we have 95.3 million iterations of it. There are so many comic book characters that exist that we've never seen on screen. And I have this conversation with friends and family and colleagues all the time. Put these new characters, I mean, they're not new, but they're new to, audiences. Put them
To a lot of people, yeah,
on celluloid. Like, let's just make it happen. I love, Spider-Man and Batman and Superman and all those vehicles, but they're not the only superheroes that exist. It was beautiful when the Black Panther came out. Beautiful. But there's more characters that exist, and we have so many different cultures out there. Where are our Native American superheroes? Where are, and I don't mean just cape wearing superheroes, but just characters in general. But where are they? I think remakes of television shows and movies are severely overdone at this point.
Yes.
Goes back to what, for me anyway, it goes back to what you said earlier about the reason people are getting into the industry. Is it because they have this passion for it and they want to put this original content out? Or is it because they want to be in charge of somebody and they want to make money and have fame? And like you said, oh, I know this will be a box office hit. Everybody knows what this is. But rather than taking the leap to try something new, especially if you are Marvel Industries or something, Marvel, people are going to go see a Marvel movie. I don't really care what the Marvel movie is. People are going to go see it. So we don't need to do the same one over and over. They are the perfect opportunity to bring these new characters to life that you were talking about.
And Dee, this goes back to something you asked me about. as it pertains to the power that we have as the audience. If we say to the studios, we don't want the same thing, give us something
Mm.
different, then the studios have no
Yes.
choice but to listen. So it's really about the audiences to band together and demand the change that we want. If an entire people can say, okay, we're going to Oscar so white this, and let's affect the change that we need to affect. If an entire people can say, we're going to march in the streets to make sure that there's more people of color and more women and more this and more that, then why can't we do the same as it pertains to, all these movies and TV shows just being made over and over and over again? We can. We just have to do it.
So would you say that if there is a SAG-AFTRA strike again, say in 3 years, like we mentioned before, are you saying that there's a place for people who aren't necessarily SAG-AFTRA members, but that care about people like yourself, that there's a place for us at that picket line too?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there were, people from all different industries inside and outside of the arts were on those picket lines with us. I mean, I met so many interesting people, and some folks had been acting all their lives. Some folks had just started acting. Some folks were in business, medicine, the whole nine. And it was really beautiful to see all these people coming together. And if I can add, it was nice to see A-list talent on the
Hmm.
lines. There was no ego with anybody, just everybody fighting that same fight, because at the end of the day, we're all in this thing together. And there's, I don't have the exact percentage breakdown, but it's, something like 20% of the union is actually consistently working in this industry. So the
Wow.
majority of members in SAG-AFTRA, it's an every second fight just to get on set, get on a sound stage, and shoot something.
Wow.
Which leads me to a question that I want to ask right quick. Okay, so with a lot of these movies kind of flopping financially, um, do you see, because I know that the big name, they have to pay a certain amount of money to these big name or these A-listers, as you just talked about. Do you think that eventually that might open up possibilities for non-A-listers, or say like the regular actor might get more of an opportunity now to maybe, make their way into some of these movies? Do you think something like that is possible?
I don't know if it will specifically open up the doors to unknown or lesser known talent or not. I mean, one would hope that the industry would become even more inclusive as time goes on, but I think it's still very much about dollars and cents for the studios. And it's you would think it's a drop in the bucket to have someone come in that doesn't require a hefty paycheck and be done with it. But at the end of the day, they still want to make as big of a profit as possible off of the
Mm-hmm.
project. And so if they're looking at, you know, me against Denzel Washington, well, who's going to sell the film? So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the reality, it's the nature of the beast. But I do think that the more and more Ava DuVernay's, Ryan Coogler's, Issa Rae's, and I'm leaving a lot of people off the list because you also have lots of amazing Asian talent and
Mm-hmm.
Latino talent that's in the mix as well. But the fact that I can't sit here and name a whole bunch of people on my hands tells you all you need to know about where we are with things still. I should be
Yeah,
able to rattle
that's
names
true.
off like that, and I can't. And that's a shame. And also, I want to say that it was several years ago, Crazy Rich Asians came out. I don't know if you've seen the
Mm-hmm.
film.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Mm-hmm.
film. There should be more of that. And oh goodness, Coda,
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Everything Everywhere All at Once, beautiful film, amazing film. Coda was a beautiful film. The deaf community, these projects and
Yeah.
artists need to be out. We don't need to be having a conversation once every 10 or 15 years about the next person or group of people that have made it through. And I know this isn't really your question, but when I was
No,
in
no, no.
college,
This is
I
good.
remember, and even still, you know, when people of color win an Oscar or a Globe or something like that, it's the response is always, "Oh my goodness, that's amazing," that kind of thing. But then the question comes, so are things changing? No, they're not changing if we have to keep asking the question. So I hope that we can get to a place where we're not even having to talk about all that anymore, because it's commonplace that women are being not only being nominated for, but actually winning Best Director and things of that sort. It's mind-boggling that folks like Greta Gerwig and Ava DuVernay and others have not gotten the kind of attention that they could or should.
Returning to, does it open the door to B-list actors or lesser known actors, and you think, oh, you can pay them less? But when you talk about this, all of this payment, and you're paying, these A-list actors $150 million or whatever it may be, do people get paid well for their work in these other roles that are important to making a movie come together? You said it's about 20% of people that are SAG-AFTRA members are employed at any given time. That's not a lot. If you become an extra, or, just maybe you don't have a talking role, but you're on screen a lot, are they paid a living wage, or are they paid, dollars?
They are paid dollars, and it is, project to project. Now, there are residuals that come into play, for films or TV shows that are rebroadcasting and all that sort of thing. But as you may have seen during the strikes, even some of the A-list people were posting their residual checks, and sometimes the checks are literally 10 cents, 5 cents. It's not even worth the paper that they're printed on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's part of what we were fighting for too. And
it seems like that's a problem kind of across the board. We were fortunate we had Skylar Jett on our show a few episodes back, and he talked about the same thing. So he's very much against platforms like Spotify, for example. So I forget which one he named, but her song had been played like millions and millions and millions of times, and she was getting pennies in these checks. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
The studios' checkbooks are exploding.
It's massive. Yeah.
So
how unfair is that? So
unfair.
Yeah.
So I know that we are coming close to the end of our time, but I want to talk just a little bit about. I could talk to you all day, so don't threaten me with a good time, Robert. But I want to do a little bit about RXG exclusives and give you the opportunity to kind of talk about it, because I think people would be really interested in being able to check that out. But one thing that I mentioned in your introduction is that is a chat series that covers a wide range of topics, from politics to pop culture and everything in between. And we talked a lot about the SAG-AFTRA stuff, which obviously goes into politics. So this may be a loaded question for you, Robert, but it looks as if in the upcoming 2024 election, we will have another face-off between Biden and Trump. And I'm not asking you to say, who you're going to vote for or anything, but I am asking, who do you think is going to fight for the rights of people like you and other SAG-AFTRA members better?
I think that we all know that we're living in very divisive times, and it continues to get worse and worse and worse, and it's frightening. It's scary to think of all the things that have happened over the last several years, whether it's the insurrection or just the continued treatment of people of color from the police, and all of these things, all of the protesting and the what some people will call rioting or looting or whatever term you want to use, that have transpired over the years. And even the women that were speaking up against the injustices. And then, of course, you have the Roe versus Wade issue and all of these things. I really feel like we're at a point where it's only going to get worse if we don't have the right people fighting for our rights and our lives, really, at the end of the day. And so I think it's pretty obvious who would be better suited for the job. But listen, at the same time, I don't have any ill will or negative things to say to folks out there. But really, if you just sit down and you look at everything that's happening, you have to ask yourself at some point, how much are you willing to deal with? So
I agree. And I
I probably
appreciate
have said
you.
way too much. But
No, you
And
did that
and
perfectly.
you
Because trust
did.
me, I'd have done it a lot differently. You did it perfectly.
I guess from my own perspective, I will leave that conversation with one comment. Out of the two candidates that look like they will be head to head in this next election, only one of them actually went onto a picket line. It was not with the SAG-AFTRA, it was with the United Auto Workers Union. But to me, that said a lot. And I think that there's always room for improvement. But I think that when I put it into a contrast, I can see a difference. And I hope that we kind of make the right decisions as we go forward, talking about all of those injustices. So now let's talk about RXG exclusives, Robert.
it started, I was working at a production company quite some time ago, and I developed a project that was called Something Else Exclusives. And we shot the first 2 episodes, and then that partnership ended before we did anything with the project. And we had two, I would call them test episodes. And I said, well, I don't want this to go to waste. And so I then developed it as my own. And after that, we filmed a few more episodes. People responded to it. And then the world stopped. And then RXG exclusives became a very Zoom heavy, video chat heavy show. But what it allowed was for me to be able to speak to people in the community, in the arts, in various professions from all over. Something that wouldn't have necessarily have happened if we had just stuck with the kind of man on the street format that the first 3 or 4 episodes had. And it really,
especially the international audience.
Yeah. And I hope that it will continue to grow. Right now, my company is deciding if there's going to be a 4th season or not, and what that might look like. But we've done 3 seasons now, 2019 through January of 20. And S. Denice has been a guest on the show, as I mentioned.
Yes.
I think it obviously the first season to 2 seasons was heavily influenced by what was happening in the world. You can't ignore hot button issues and things that are affecting us every day. And so we talked a lot about COVID-19 and fears and how to overcome those fears. But largely it wasn't, too heavy of a show. It was more so meant for people to be able to inspire other people and encourage other people in the midst of all of the drama and stress and everything. Because I know the both of you know, especially during the COVID epidemic, that it was coinciding with a very rough situation in the country. And I've gotten to a place now where I don't watch the news as much as I used to, or I'll watch the local news. But it got to a point for me where it was just making me like, and so I have to protect my spirit and my peace a little bit. I do think it's important for all of us to know what's going on. So you do need to get your news somehow, even if it's just in written form. So but I hope that if we come back with a season 4, that we open it up and are talking to even more people that are, from all walks of life, because I think we can learn so much more in that way, versus just talking to people that might always have the same opinion or life trajectory that you do. So.
And I know you said that you're still contemplating the season 4, but that you've got content through January 2024, even content that includes the amazing Denice Newton. So where can I or our listeners go to check these out?
So anyone can check out RXG exclusives by going to my website, which is robertxgolphin.com. And on there, you'll see a tab for projects, and you'll find RXG exclusives on there. You can also go to YouTube, or you can get it wherever your podcasts are, whether that's iHeart or Spotify. If you'd rather just listen to the podcast while you're biking or walking or hiking, there's all sorts of ways you can listen to them now.
And for our listeners, wherever they're getting this content from, please know that in our episode description, I will post the links to all of the places that Robert has just mentioned. And again, his website is robertxgolphin.com.
And you can also check out, I know we didn't talk about the book, but you can check out Cold Night and a Warm Season on there too.
I actually was going to give you the opportunity just before we closed off. Please do tell us about A Cold Night and a Warm Season.
Well, Cold Night and a Warm Season is about a young graduate college student who is trying to have a career in screenwriting, and he's dealing with mortality issues, people in his life that are leaving him, and he's trying to figure out, have I done what I need to do? How do I succeed? How do I make the people in my life happy and proud of me? And that's what the book is largely about. It deals with, mental health, especially as it pertains to artists, because this is like I said, and as you said, Dee, not for the faint of heart. And so you definitely have to, whether that's meditating or just having somebody that you can talk to, that you can trust, help you get through it, because it's certainly not easy. So I hope people will check out the book. It is something that I started writing way before the pandemic, and then life got in the way. But when the pandemic hit, I said, I'm going to sit down and finish this book. And so now I'm glad I did, and I'm glad that it's out there. And it was inspired by, some of my own things that I've dealt with in life, but largely inspired by friends, family, colleagues, and just perfect strangers.
Perfect strangers. I love that. And looking back on the course of our conversation, what final message would you like to leave for our listeners or aspiring artists?
If you have a dream to be in the arts industry, have that dream, nurse that dream, but do not give that dream to every single person in your life. You need to hold some things close to the vest, because people will take that dream that you have and rip it up and say that it's not possible. And it's not always malicious. A lot of times it's the people that are closest to you, because they don't want you to struggle. They don't want you to go through what they went through, and they don't know how to give you the kind of support that you need. So take that dream and hold it close, and know that you can do it, because sometimes you have to bake that cake first. And then when everybody sees that you baked that cake, oh, okay, you've got skills. So can I help you make the next one? And that's really how it works. Trust me, I've learned the hard way.
That's perfect.
And overcome those challenges and barriers, it seems to me.
I don't know if it was you or S. Denice that mentioned it, but it's definitely a stepping stone, and each part of my life is a stepping stone. There's a lot more that I wish to accomplish, and like I said, I'm always looking to collaborate with folks. I reach out to people almost every day, whether they're mainstream, independent, or up and coming, and most of the time I don't hear anything back, and that's okay. But I think that there's so much art and change that we can make in the universe, and I look forward to doing it. And S. Denice, those screenplays that you've put into the drawer, please pull them out and keep writing. We need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who knows, we might be able to do something together. So let's continue to keep believing in ourselves, because if we don't believe in ourselves, no one else will.
Even I'm interested in getting to know more about what you do. Maybe check out one of your film classes or something. Even with this podcast, I think Denice and I were just really passionate, and we really wanted to do this. But I will admit that I was kind of thrown into a new world with editing and sound design and all these things that I was saying.
And she's done phenomenal since she's been doing it.
It's really just trial and error, and learning in the field. Yes, I did go to school for film and all that kind of stuff, but I had so much experience before I even went to, I went to St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina for undergraduate.
Denice is home.
Shout out to North Carolina, one of my second homes. And
shout out to Philadelphia. I'm a Pittsburgh girl.
Oh, okay, yeah, great. And so I went there, and I went to Spalding.
Connections to both of us here.
Yeah.
Yes, and I went to high school in Philly.
Oh, wow. Okay. I went to, Spalding University School of Writing for graduate school, but I had so much experience coming into all of that because I worked in the field for so long. And even with editing is something I'm still, trying to find the evolution with. So I'm trying to get better, and we're always trying to get better at our craft. The day you stop, the day you think you know it all, that's the day you should quit. So
I could not agree
love
more.
that.
That is
I love
amazing.
that.
We should never strive to be stagnant. We should always be trying to become better every day. Every day, be better than you were yesterday. You don't have to be better than somebody else. You just have to be
right,
better than yourself.
right.
I had told Dee before, when we were first getting this together for you to come. I said, I'm telling you, sir, you're going to really love Robert. Remember,
Oh,
you're going to
thank
love
you.
him. I just know what persistence, and you're talking about that, about never
Resilience,
giving up, what persistence will do, and not giving up on your dreams. But I just want to say that I'm just so, when it comes to you're just one of my faves, and for so many reasons. And you have anybody that's listening to this podcast, get in touch with Robert. With you have any questions, and he will answer any question that you have. You need any guidance, if you want to take advantage of his film schools, or his lessons, or whatever, do it. He is that person. I promise you, he is that person. Get in touch with him. I tell him, Denice sent you. I'm telling you, he is that person. I really want you to do that, because we are in a place where people got so much in them, and we don't have a whole lot of people in our world today that's willing to impart into others. Some people want to be gatekeepers. They want to just hoard everything for themselves, for whatever reason. But when we got people that's willing to share what they have, and especially a consummate professional, that's Robert X. Golphin. You want to get in touch with him, and like Dee said, we will have the information. You'll have it linked there, for them to be able to.
Absolutely. In all of the descriptions, wherever our listeners may be hearing this right now, if you go into our episode description, you'll be able to find those links.
Yes.
Thank you
And
both
so
so
please,
much.
yeah,
I know
please.
we're over time. I just want to add that, you mentioned about
Please.
persistence. It really is just about having mad scientist energy, because if I listen to all the voices that have told, and even still to this day continue to say, Robert, do something else, give it up, blah, 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 I wouldn't be Robert X. Golphin. So, and
That's
I'm
right.
going to be myself.
That's what I'm talking about.
I love that so much.
You empty out while you got it. There's one of the things that I believe in. One of my mottos is, when I leave this earth, I want to leave empty. And that's what I intend to do. And I try to impact as many people as I can. And I've been blessed to do that and to meet a lot of people.
And you
Like I
certainly
said,
do leave that impact, Denice. You've left an impact on me. Robert, you've left an impact on me just from this conversation, but it goes beyond that. Denice evidenced it earlier. 14 years ago, you went and gave a talk, and people are still
Yes.
asking her about you,
Wow.
still talking
Yeah.
about you. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
amazing.
That's humbling.
Sometimes we
Thank
don't
you so
realize
much.
the impact that we can have, even with something small. Even if we're working at Dollar General and we say, hey, here's some words of encouragement, keep
Yeah,
going.
that's right.
One thing
It's
that
okay.
happened to me after S. Denice's education conference, I was on Amtrak heading back to Philadelphia, and somebody who was at the event, I think, happened to be on the train, and they told me that I encouraged them to go back to school. That blew my mind.
Wow. It's amazing.
There was a newspaper article where he was getting off the train, when he came from Philly to North Carolina for the conference. He was so humble. When he comes and he's sitting there listening to other people, just like he's learning so much from the others. Oh, Robert you're just amazing. I'm just telling you, you're just amazing. And because you gave something that we passed out to all the kids. I remember that. And they definitely remember you. You left a mark on them, I can tell you that. So
It's amazing how
lasting
time
impact.
flies.
it is. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I've been just so excited to have this conversation. Denice has said the most amazing things about you, and you did not disappoint. I will tell you that.
Thank you so much.
Please stay in touch.
Will do. Will do.
Yeah, to stay in touch. He
You
just had a
again.
birthday recently too.
I did.
Happy birthday.
Groundhog Day.
Belated.
The groundhog here said that spring was coming, but we've had a few bouts of snow lately, and we have more coming next week. So I don't know what that means.
Right.
We're in fool's spring.
Yeah.
Those couple days of warmth, yeah, the spring of deception, whatever you want to call it.
Deception.
That's it. I like that one.
Well, again, I can really not thank you enough for being here, Robert. And Denice, you always have the most amazing connections, and you're such a joy to do this podcast with. Thank you to both of you so much.
Same here. Same here. Thank you, Robert.
That does it for us this week. Thank you for tuning in and staying informed and being a part of our podcast community. You can follow us on social media, Spotify, and YouTube at @therealdeal_pod. Again, that's at @therealdeal_pod. Let us know your thoughts and questions because we want to hear them and we really value your feedback. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Your engagement would really mean the world to us. Thank you, everyone.